Well, it's been a long time coming for us to get our good friend and fellow podcast host, Ben Albert, here on the Limitless Leadership Lounge. Actually, we did have him on as part of a panel about a year and a half ago, but it's been a little bit, and Ben has a lot of insight to share here, so we're glad to bring him on. If you don't know Ben Albert, I don't know where you've been because everybody knows Ben Albert. Ben asks questions for a living. He is the host of the Real Business Connections, which is a top 1% podcast across the world. And he has some big time guests on that podcast as well. I know it started here in the Rochester area, but Ben has made that a podcast all around the world. Ben is also the founder and owner of Balbert Marketing, the company that powers Real Business Connections. And overall, Ben is a connector. That's how people know him. A lot of people meet through Ben. Sometimes even the people that I connect with on LinkedIn, they're like, how did you find me? And I will say Ben Albert. And likewise, they'll do the same thing. So Ben knows a lot of people. A lot of people know Ben, and we're excited to learn about networking, about marketing, about his LinkedIn prowess, his podcast, and so much more. The great Ben Albert, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thank you all for having me. I'm with my peers. Like, I guess you guys are going to interview me, but I look up to all of you as friends, peers, and mentors. So I appreciate the opportunity today.
And I also had the honor of being on Ben's podcast as well. And I know Coach and Renuma, you guys are also fans of the Real Business Connections. So definitely worth checking out. The link is down in the show notes if you want to check out Ben's podcast, The Real Business Connections. But Ben, let's start with how you first got into being a master connector. I was going to ask you how it all started, how Balbert Marketing started, and then how Real Business Connections started. Can you take us back a few years back to what was going on in your life and the circumstances that caused you to start all of these great things?
It's funny because I never defined or thought of myself as like a master connector. Um, Way back in the day in high school, I was obsessed with music, and there was a local band in Rochester, New York, a reggae band called Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad. Talk about a mouthful, Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad. But I was a high school student and I just got into this band. And before you know it, I'm handing out flyers. I'm sending people invitations on, back then it was MySpace and then eventually Facebook. I swear to God, our school, about 10 to 20% of the students had a Giant Panda t-shirt simply because of just a few of us were promoting this at the time itsy bitsy local band that's now known more national and internationally. But I didn't see myself as a connector. I just saw a good thing and wanted to amplify it. And I didn't realize that I was going to become a podcaster or a marketer. I just saw a good thing and was passionate about it well before I knew how to monetize any of this stuff. So when COVID had hit, I was actually furloughed from my sales executive role at a corporate company doing video production all across the United States. No travel, no in person, no video, no fulfillment, no sales. If anything, you get chargebacks. So what can you do? I got let go from my role. And at that time, I had hosted a music podcast, again, because I loved music in Rochester for many years. I had started it in 2016. So we can go as nuanced or deep into it as possible. Really, all I did is take my love of podcasting, my love of amplifying a good thing, and I started a business because my back was against a wall during COVID and I didn't know what to do. And through starting now a business podcast, Music Ben just redefined himself to Business Ben. Music Ben is out late at night, has bloodshot eyes, doesn't always take care of himself. Business Ben has nothing else to do because it's a pandemic and wants to actually, make some money because I don't have a job. And Business Ben started a business podcast to amplify local leaders in Rochester, New York. And Coach Jim Johnson was one of the first 20, 30 episodes. He was one of the first batch. And nowadays we're here now. So amazing how things happen for me, even if it didn't always feel that way.
Yeah, Ben, I'm curious because you're still a pretty young guy, certainly in my eyes, anyways. And so there's various reasons people become entrepreneurs like you have, and and often it's because they either are unhappy with their job, or they lose their job, or even they just have a burning desire. But our focus is to help young leaders. So what advice, a couple of suggestions you would share with a person that's thinking about starting their own business to help them to get off to a better start?
Yeah, we'll start with the harsh advice, but no one's coming to save you.
Mm.
No one's, and there are situations where people will help you, they will love on you, they will support you, but no one's going to run your business for you. No one's going to operate it for you. No one's coming to save you. Now that you understand that, you need to surround yourself with the right kind of people, because people want to help you. They want to put their chips on you and invest in you and spend time with you, especially if they see like momentum and vision and potential. So you're going to have to put in the time and effort to make it work. It's not going to be easy, but everyone you need to help you is already out there. The mentor that you need has already done what you're looking to accomplish, and possibly they're retired or wealthy or bored, and they're happy to spend time with you. The answers you need are in podcasts, they're in video series, they're in books. And I just happened to start a podcast to surround myself with the right kind of people, but you don't even have to start a podcast per se. You can just listen to podcasts. You can read books. You can go to live events, start live events. If I'm a young and emerging leader, I want to determine who has done what I'm trying to do and how can I insert myself into their life. Sometimes pay for it if I have the income, but even if I can, find a way to get in their circle. And again, no one's coming to save you or do it for you, but people will help you, and they have the insight that you need.
So true. And this really strikes a chord, because when you are in this world, there are few things you know that you can do. And everybody, there could be cheerleaders. It's always helpful to have cheerleaders around you, but the actual task, you have to do it. So there is no way out. And I remember you mentioning in your also LinkedIn post that you grew up as like an introvert. You did not like as an introvert. So how did you break that comfort zone? Because when you are networking, you're meeting people, you're talking. As an introvert, I know many of my friends, they don't feel comfortable in that zone surrounded by people. So how did you break that mold? Because many introverts are listening to this podcast and they would they would love to learn the trick.
Yeah, and I wish there was a trick. And I do think possibly this is a limiting belief that just holds me back, but I still feel introverted. I have feelings of anxiety in my body at live events. Sometimes if it's like quick, if there's a lot of distractions, I think I'm a little ADHD. If there's a lot of distractions, I sometimes have trouble focusing. I'm trying to remember names and I'm meeting too many people, and I still get clammy. When I was a kid, I was the shortest kid in school, wanted to be a basketball player, literally would play 5-on-5 against myself. I was in the driveway playing 5-on-5. I'd imagine each of the players. I'd pass it to myself. I'd defend myself, do like fadeaways. I wanted to be a basketball player, but I lived to be 5'8" on a good day, so that never happened. And I got bullied and I made myself smaller. And sometimes I feel myself at networking events actually making myself smaller, not feeling comfortable. Again, this could be a limiting belief based on the story of my past, but I got really freaking lucky because where Ben thrives, this environment we're in right now is where I thrive better than any other environment. When I can have an insightful discussion and go deep, when we can talk about our heart and soul, when we can talk about tips and tactics, when we can educate is where I thrive. I don't thrive in busy environments with a lot of short conversations with not, I feel like not a deeper level connection. And I got lucky that I started a podcast on Zoom same headset every single time, same camera every single time, low level of distraction. So I'm not going to encourage an introvert to hide from the world, but I have noticed that podcasting just lended into my strengths,
Right.
my want to go deep. There's never been a better place in the world to go deep than a one-to-one conversation. So when I network, I'd rather do 10 one-to-ones than 2 large events.
Right.
Know thyself. So I do a lot of one-to-ones because I can focus on the person, but I don't do the large events. Or if we get together for lunch, if it's a group of trusted peers, you could probably get me talking all day. But um,
Mm.
first off, it could be a limiting belief that I'm not extroverted and fun, but I know thyself and I thrive when I can go deep. So I lean into that. I try to
Right.
put myself in circumstances where I can do just that.
Yeah.
And I think that is courage. Sometimes that is what we need. If we are fearful, we are afraid, but again, we are challenging those zones. That is courage. You're showing courage, and at the same time, you are using your element. You have found your element to thrive. But even I would feel like the imposter syndrome that happens to us sometime. So when I'm in this, I'm invited to talk in this. All these people, they're all top people in their field. And then I said, that, do I belong here? What am I doing here? And then I realized, no, because I am part of it, they value my thoughts. That is why they invited me to be here and to talk. If not, and sometimes that's our limiting belief often tries to keeps us in the box. But if we can find that alignment and maximize it, that can help us to reach new level.
And just to add, you're entirely right, Renuma. And that's why I pull out that it could be a limiting belief or something holding myself back because I volunteered with an entrepreneurial group of high school students. They did like a Shark Tank thing. I've spoke at events. I'm getting out of my comfort zone, but
Right.
I didn't dive out of my comfort zone. It's kind of I grew up introverted. Doesn't mean that that's all of me. It's probably a limiting belief that I don't belong in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that exposure therapy of
Right.
getting into rooms where I once felt I didn't deserve to be.
Mm.
I feel like a lot of times no one in the room thinks they deserve to be
True.
there. It's like we
Exactly.
all have that
That's very
same
true.
limiting belief
Exactly.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Ben, you have really grown this real business connections, your podcast to a great level, top 1% internationally. So congratulations on that. First of all,
Yeah.
you talk about asking questions for a living. And this is so important because so many introverts or really anybody, even extroverts, we want to start a podcast. There's so many people who want to start a podcast and have it. And I know we've had the honor of I've been on a panel with you talking about podcasts and how to start your own podcast. And that was a real joy. And a lot of people in the audience are saying, well, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know what to say. But a good place to start that you've displayed is asking questions. What has the role of curiosity been in the start of your podcast and in your networking as a whole?
So we could go real deep and philosophical. I'm going to broad stroke, but I believe the quality of our life is in direct correlation to the quality of the questions we ask,
Mm.
not just of others, but of ourselves. So when you live that life of curiosity, you might realize that a belief you once had actually isn't true, but you have to have that curiosity to look at it and, as a bystander, question oneself.
Mm.
All the answers you'll ever need in this world, they are on Google now, I suppose, but there was a lifetime before Google, right? All the answers we've ever needed are in the hearts and souls of the people around us.
Mm.
So simply asking questions, and it actually fills my own cup. Like I get to learn stuff I didn't know. It's not completely communal. Like it is kind of selfish in a way. You know something I don't. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to get an answer, but I don't get the answer if I don't ask. And if I think I know everything, I'm going to close myself off to learning. So I think we need to check the questions we ask ourselves. And then we need to check the questions we ask other people. Steve Sims, he's very direct. He was on my podcast, but he wrote a book, Go for Stupid. And he talks about asking stupid questions and then eventually they get better. And he used to ask a question like, why are you rich and I'm not? And he'd get kind of silly answers, or why are you successful and I'm not? And will I have a great family? Like he would, and he continued to ask until he was able to get to the point where he was like, what did you do to get yourself in this prosperous place? So why are you rich and I'm not? He would get kind of a shallow answer. But then when you get to a question like, what did your story look like to get you to a point where you're completely fulfilled? Your family's kicking butt. You seem like you can do anything. His questions got better the more he asked bad ones. So the only mistake we can make is not ask questions at all. And as we ask questions, we'll get more fruitful answers the better our questions become.
So Ben, you've had the pleasure to interview a lot of excellent leaders on your Real Business Connections. I'm curious, can you distill 2 or 3 qualities, characteristics, habits, whatever you want to call it, that you see is repeated in why these people have become highly successful as leaders?
Yeah, and this might be a broken record because I've said it before, but not every listener has heard this. There isn't a specific key to success. I believe it's a combination lock. I've learned it's more of like a padlock where each individual has a unique combination. No two people do it exactly the same way. And the more I speak to successful leaders, the more I realize that, yeah, they have their own unique combination, but the way they built their combination was mentorship, was failing, was getting in the room and learning and growing. We create our combination through experience. So that's why I'm forever curious and fascinated, because I can talk to anyone in the world and they're going to give me a different combination than the previous person. But one of the things that I feel is a commonality is they didn't do it alone. They surrounded themselves with the right people so they could sift through what was right or wrong, ethical, disethical, what felt right, listen to their intuition, create their own combination. And the second part is success. Speed is helpful, but success rewards consistency. I've given this analogy before, but I don't know if the listeners have heard it. I'm sure you guys have, but let's say we were to go to a teeth brushing seminar and all 4 of us would learn how to brush the teeth, the softness of the brush, what kind of gum, if we have gum, the different, like different gums interact different ways, flossing, how to floss. And then me and Renuma decide, let's practice all day, and we brush our teeth 8 hours a day. The day after the seminar, we just brush. And then John and Coach decide, oh, I learned a lot. Let me brush my teeth for 2 minutes twice a day. Let me floss them once a day. And I'll just do that, 3 to 5 minutes a day the rest of my life. Who's going to have better teeth? The people that vigorously brushed, or the people that slowly implemented something they knew and integrated it into their lifestyle over time? And that's the one thing I've learned from so many of my guests is they don't take days off for no reason. They might take a day off for self-care. They might take a day off because their family needs a vacation, but they're consistently working on their craft. They're putting the work in every single day. And it shows it in the quality of products and teams they build.
Right.
So that would be my 2 things. Surrounding yourself with the right mentors so you can learn things and extract the wisdom they have that you don't have yet. And then utilizing and integrating what you learn consistently, just implementing 10 minutes of what you learned a day for the rest of your life, what kind of fulfilling life could we live? And imagine what would happen if we didn't do that. Imagine not doing that and meeting the man, woman, or just person you could have been, and you don't even recognize them because all those negative habits, you just continue doing them and you never implemented anything new. I'm a positive person, and I like to say things like, let's imagine who we could be. I've learned through fear. It's like imagining who I want to be is nice, but imagining who I could be is devastating. Meeting the man I could have been and having him pity me is devastating. So if anyone needs some motivation, just think about, if I were to keep doing what I'm doing today, who will I become? And if you're not proud of that person, that means we need to make a change.
Yeah, and I think that is the why we are doing what we are doing. And Simon Sinek would always say that find your why. What is the why? What do you want to become? So that's also a why. And then you channel everything there. And one thing that resonated, resonated from your conversation is the growth mindset. I think all these leaders tend to have that growth mindset.
Yes.
So, and not giving up. And there are so many talks where we have seen that all these leaders, they went through failures. There isn't anybody who was born a success. So it doesn't happen. And I think that is why learning from each other is so important. And I feel that your real business connection, I think that creates that platform to help each other learn and grow. So from your point of view, what are the things that you are really enjoying from this platform, the real business connection? What are the things, why do we, in this world of AI, when we are also afraid of AI, and Yuval Harari, he was saying that technology earlier, they did not make decision. And now we have AI that is making decision. We might not even need people. So AI could be my girlfriend or boyfriend or things like that.
Oh my.
And we are happy. So why do you think this relationship, human connections, now is very important nowadays for
Sure.
success?
And I won't go down the girlfriend rabbit hole. But there are a
You're
lot of
taken, Ben, aren't
interesting.
you?
There's a lot of things that could happen from AI. Let's say an AI could make the best logical decision. Who's going to manage and lead the team to be sold on that decision, understand the purpose behind it, why they're doing it, and show up fulfilled and excited to accomplish that mission?
Right.
If you can get an AI to do that, I guess that's another conversation. I think we're a long way away from AIs being able to communicate emotion, being able to communicate leadership, connection. And I think in a world where anyone can pick up their phone, scroll, see people, whether they have it or not, or they're faking it, see people wealthier than them, see people prettier than them, see people smarter than them. All the answers are on Google. I think our world is just struggling and in need of deeper connection. Maybe this is a projection. I feel like I need deeper connection. I think the world has never needed it more. I think as technology gets better, it's actually going to inflate that problem. And that's why, in my opinion, leadership, sales, which is really just influence and persuasion, and marketing skills will forever be irreplaceable, because you're always going to need someone to help. The AI could come up with the ABC solution. You're going to need someone to lead the team, lead the pack, sell the idea, bring the idea to market. That human-to-human interaction is what we all thrive. We've never had less of it. So I feel as if we get better at that, which the podcast just allows me to learn and have that interaction and get better at it, I started the podcast because I wanted more wisdom, and I just happened to be able to spread it out to more people, which kicks butt. But
Mm.
if we can learn how to better communicate, if we can learn how to better make an impact and influence and sell an idea,
Mm.
I think that's going to be the top performing skill any human can have, because data entry related skills can be handled from the device, which honestly might end up being a good thing for us. We can focus more on each other and
Mm.
less on 4 times 4 equals 16 times 4 equals
Right.
64. We got a computer for that.
Right. Not wasting time on those things, but have more chance to be creative and innovative.
Yes, open up to be creative. And I'm open to listener feedback. I'm giving you my intuitive thoughts, but I'm not an expert on this category.
Yeah, I'm like recently I've become fascinated with all these ideas. The Google's AI head, he resigned because according to him, there should be some government control now so that we human do not become redundant in the future. So it's crazy. Like Mo Gaddard, I love his talks also. He was also a Google expert in business. And he's also saying that I'm afraid, but we can use the AI for good, actually doing good to the world. But there should have to have some limits to where we can let that prowl. So that's another conversation. But
Yeah.
it is fascinating where how the technology is growing
Yeah.
in
And I
this
do
world.
love how Renuma, Coach, and Ben and myself as well, we tend to see that AI as more of an opportunity than a threat. And I think
Right.
there's a lot of fear surrounding that, but just our mindset, just the way that we think about it, I think is really important. And switching gears, Ben, I'm really curious about something you are an expert in, whether you believe it or not, and that is LinkedIn. And this is really something that a lot of young professionals, I think, are underperforming in. And that's not to say that everybody has to be a LinkedIn master, but I think it is a tool that you've utilized very well that a
Mm.
lot of people have not tapped into. Are there some tangible things that you've done on LinkedIn that you've found success? I know you really have taken your social media presence and really focused on that one platform, LinkedIn. How rewarding has that been for you, and what are some of those tangible things that you've done to lead to that success?
Absolutely. As a young professional, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All the information you need and all the people that you need to help you on your journey, they're already out there.
Mm.
There's a super high probability that every one of them's on LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's wild because it's a social media platform. You can send someone a message, and if they reply, great. If they don't, you just move on and send someone else a message. So what I did, and we I'd love to get in a tangible, specific example for a young professional in a moment, because what I did was there's a lot going on. I wanted to start a business and a business podcast. So I went on LinkedIn to connect with business owners in Rochester, New York, so I could start a Rochester, New York based business podcast. And believe it or not, even though I didn't even have a name for it at the time, pretty much everyone was saying yes. They wanted to put their chips on me because they wanted to be featured, and it was great. It was just to add value to the community. But we could go deep into podcasting because I've talked about that a million times, but it doesn't have to be a podcast. You could do a research paper. You could start a blog. You could start a live event. I love the idea of any research related paper. You
Mm.
just say, I'm I'm doing a study on X. The X is going to be the niche that you're focused on podcasting, on leadership, on science. I'm doing a study on X. I notice that you X, Y, and Z. I notice that you're a doctorate of science, focused on biology. I'm doing this study on. Oh man, I shouldn't use a science example because I'm not sciencey. I'm doing this study
Social behavior.
on social behavior and how AI might actually change the biological like we're going through an adaptionary period because of AI. As an expert, I would be so honored if you would help me contribute to this paper.
Mm.
And you send that to 10 people, I'm willing to bet you'd get at least 5 yeses.
Right.
Right.
And you just got in the door with someone who has accomplished all the things that you could ever imagine.
True.
And the reason you got in the door is you came to bring value. So let's take a step back. You might not get great results if you're like, hey, you're cool. Can I pick your brain? People are like, I'm busy, I'm exhausted, I don't know you. But if you go, hey, I have a vision. The vision is to write a paper, a blog, a video series, a podcast. I want to put together, you have a vision. You say, hey, this is my vision. Would you like to be a part of it? This is why I would benefit you.
Right. Right.
People will take the 20 minutes to answer your questions. And then when you publish whatever you're looking to publish, they're going to share it because they were a part of it, which is going to reach more people. You just built some rapport with them. Once it's published, you go, hey, John, thank you so much for your contribution. I quoted you X, Y, and Z. Thank you for being a part of it. Let me know if I can be any service to you because I'm just really impressed with what you do. Let me know if I can buy your book. Let me know if I can volunteer with you. Let me know if you want to join my community, after school community. Let me know if you want to come be a speaker. You just reach out with value to bring. You let them know, I'm repeating myself, but you let them know the benefit of them being a part of it. And before you know it, they're like, wow, this person's pretty cool.
Right.
This person's interesting. And before you know it, they're investing more time with you than you ever asked them because they are a leader that have accomplished good things and they like to see vision in someone else.
Right.
I don't think I'm there yet. I'm like a glimpse of it. But when I see someone younger than me and less experienced so far than me, but I can feel their vision, I want to spend time with them. And I think that just continues to scale. The best leaders out there are consistently looking for someone that can be their mentee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then are there any best practices as far as LinkedIn etiquette, LinkedIn behavior that you've run across? Because I know it's a social network, but it has some different expectations than your typical Facebook or Instagram.
Hey, Ben, could I just augment, because I'm
Please.
curious with John, also, if you could mention any suggestions on people for their profile page as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn's interesting because it used to be a job board and now it's like a full-on social platform where you'll see people posting a vacation photo. You'll see someone posting a picture with their dog. So there's been kind of a blend of both. I think as younger generations utilize LinkedIn, it actually becomes more personal and social. It's never been less of a job board. So I don't think there's a hard or fast rule. I would ask myself, if my ideal employer, if my ideal client, my ideal mentor were to look at my page, would they be disgusted or would they be impressed? So I don't recommend shirtless photos. I don't recommend politics. I don't recommend drama. You don't have to have a perfect headshot, but you post a picture of your face, preferably making eye contact with the camera. And sometimes if it's not a professional headshot, it's actually more warming and unique. So it can just be you hiking with a beautiful landscape, you looking right at the camera. Then you've got the main cover photo. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be professional. What I do recommend people do is provide some level of social proof. So this wasn't perfect, but when I started LinkedIn, I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have any good photos. So I posted a photo of me with a lot of my friends on Friendsgiving. We all come together for Friendsgiving. I'm standing there in the front, my buddy's standing there holding up his dog, and I'm surrounded by like 20 different people. Wasn't the greatest professional photo, but it provided social proof that I'm part of a community and I have
Right.
friends. So your profile photo, you want to make eye contact with the camera, you want to look presentable. Your cover photo wants to provide social proof, not proof that you go to the gym and have a six pack, but proof that you're out there, you know people, you're not a robot. Something personal about you is very valuable. And then in the bio, tell your story to the level that it's completed. Don't pretend you're someone you're not. Talk about, Renuma said, Simon Sinek, like start with why. Talk about who you want to be and why you want to be that person.
Good.
I'm looking to achieve X because of Y. I'm looking to be a sales executive for a marketing firm because when I was a kid, I was the band t-shirt guy. I was handing out flyers and I found a true passion for marketing. And the more and more I've studied marketing, the more and more I've realized that when there's a good thing, the world doesn't know about it without marketing. So I've made my vision to make sure that the good things reach as many people as possible. I just made that up. It's only like a fraction of why I do what I do. But you tell a story, you explain who you want to be and why you want to be that person. It doesn't have to be, we might not have credentials yet, but your employers, your mentors, your clients, your soon to be friends are going to read that and be like, "Oh, I want to invest in this person." So that's broad strokes, but that's where I'd start. And then there's bringing in recommendations and there's posting, and we could probably do 8 hours on LinkedIn, but just get out there authentically and
Right.
let people know what you're looking to do.
Right. And I think that also builds trust. So
Yes.
LinkedIn, and nowadays when we are so much apart, people are not always conversing with me face to face. So through LinkedIn, when they're going over your bio and everything and all the things that you're doing, all the people you're connected with, that trust is being built. So it's easier to move to the next level.
Absolutely.
So Ben, I'm curious with because going into entrepreneur and obviously running a couple different businesses, and so can you give me advice? Give our listeners advice because you brought up before something that I've heard, and I think you're so right, is consistency. And it was interesting because Renuma introduced this book that's now sold over 10 million books called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
And two things that because I've listened to James a lot on podcast interviews, two things that jump out to me, and my question, and I'll share with you in just a second, is that he called it the 2-minute rule, just doing something for 2 minutes. So your story about the brushing the teeth is so powerful. And then the other thing that I kind of take my own thing is I have a few habits that what I call non-negotiables. And if I miss them for a day, my rule is I can't miss it 2 days in a row. So with that is a reference, what can you help leaders with from a time management perspective? I know you've gotten really good with your own time management. Can you share a couple ideas about that?
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you just said with like a tweetable, something that you could write down, I believe that confidence comes from memories of winning. Confidence comes from memories of winning. Success comes from memories of winning. Conviction comes from memories of winning. And the best way to create those memories is to put in easy to accomplish tasks into your calendar. Check that box. And coach just said it. We're not going to, maybe we aren't going to be able to do 100 straight. But if we check that box 95 times out of 100, don't you think we're going to see ourselves as a winner? So I have certain morning routines that people think I'm crazy, and they're correct. The amount of things I do, everything from meditation to affirmations to visualization exercises to ultimately, I just got a massage membership. So going and getting a massage, doing breath work, reading, writing. There's a lot of things I do. We can go into them if you want, but really the key here is they're on my calendar and they reoccur every single day. And
Mm.
I like to try to accomplish them all in the morning, depending on, the deliverable. For example, meditation. Sometimes it's not 45 minutes, but sometimes I spend 3 minutes doing a box breathing exercise to center myself for the day. And then I delete it off my calendar once it's done. But
Mm.
it's on the calendar. The worst case scenario is, let's say something comes up, it's out of your control. You just drag it to the very, very end of your day and do that breathing exercise in bed right before bed. But I put these non negotiables scheduled into my calendar, hold myself accountable. Not only do they make me better that I'm meditating and reading and writing and, making introductions, not only does it make me better, it actually makes me more confident because I see myself as an accountable person.
Mhm.
So the best thing we can do, because every schedule is going to look different, it doesn't have to be every morning at 8 a.m. That might not work for people. But if we have a to-do list that coach said is non-negotiable and we can check that box every single day, don't you think we're going to have more confidence in ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. So that works. And
That's
that is the reputation.
Mm. And that's
absolutely.
that's the atomic habits, right? It's
Exactly.
there's no I'll go back. I used to like want to wave a magic wand and give the perfect answer. It goes back to the no key to success. It's a combination lock.
Mm.
Most answers to questions are it depends.
Mhm.
Going back to the quality of our life is the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. We have to
Right.
ask ourselves the question, where do I have free time? When am I scrolling my phone? Can I wake up 20 minutes earlier? Where am I missing opportunities? And once we have some clarity there, then we can schedule in a task that makes us better and not bitter. But it's not a hard and fast rule, it's an individual process.
Right.
Sure.
Great leaders ask great questions. So I
That's
think it
right.
was John Maxwell, right? Right,
Yep,
Coach?
yep, he wrote that one. Yep.
Yeah, he wrote that one. I think that is so true.
Nothing I'm saying here is rocket science. It's actually me just extracting what I
Exactly.
believe the best wisdom from the best mentors of my life and
Mm.
then putting it in a podcast for everybody. None of this is Ben's brilliant thoughts. It's from learning from the John Maxwells of the world.
Well, that's one of
Right.
the powerful things of podcasting is that you can kind of accelerate the process by taking from other people's experience. And all of a sudden, instead of spending 40 years to learn something, you can spend, an hour or so. So I think that's
So true.
really, really powerful. And you are also extending your knowledge as well to others, which I think is really admirable. I know you guest on a lot of podcasts. What has that experience been like for you? I mean, here you are guesting on this podcast, so I hope it's a good experience. But as far as the podcast that you're ending up being asked to be a guest on, how fulfilling has that been as well for you?
Yeah, we touched on this slightly before, but I often feel like an imposter. I often feel like I don't belong. Even when I started my podcast, I felt like I had good questions and I liked to market and highlight a good thing. I was always a cheerleader for other people. There was nothing wrong with that. But I didn't feel like I had anything to say. I was the question asking guy. My own confidence and conviction in my story, what I do, my ability to jump into an investor meeting, my ability to answer a client question that came from left field, my ability to be present in the moment, all of this accelerated by guesting on shows and being really crappy when I started. Going in and being like, does anybody really want to hear Ben talk? Still to this day, I'm a rambler. I try to be concise, but I like nuance, deep depth. So I'll ramble for days and days and days, and I'll ask myself, does anybody actually care, Ben? But it wasn't until I started to guest on shows that I realized that I wasn't just the question guy. I wasn't just the amplifier. I
Mm.
wasn't just the cheerleader. I could actually be the leader as well and have people cheering for me. And I didn't realize that until I actually got out of my comfort zone and became not just a host, but a guest.
Beautifully said.
We all have to be that. We all have to be both the leader and the cheerleader at different times, depending on our roles in our lives. So Ben, that's all good insight. Coach Renuma, do you have any final questions? I know I have just two quick things to wrap up.
I have
No,
one last
yeah,
question.
go ahead,
I'm just
Coach.
curious. So what is the best question somebody has asked you on a podcast that really stimulated your thinking?
I sometimes ask questions like this and I put people on the spot, and then I get asked questions like this and then I can't answer them. It's funny. So this isn't probably the best question, but it's a really good question. Is like when someone asks me like, who are you? Like, who is Ben? The initial external thought is, I'm a son, I'm a friend, I'm a marketer, I'm a learner, I'm curious. But when I get stuck in the rabbit hole of asking questions of myself, who am I? Like, I'm just a curious human trying to figure stuff out. Like, I'm someone who has trauma and shame that I have to unpack. I'm someone that wins sometimes and loses terribly other times. So when people ask those deep philosophical questions, like, who are you? I can go to the scripted answer, but sometimes I get a little intuitive. And I realize, like, who actually am I? I'm but a leader trying to figure this out. And am I even a leader, or am I just following in the footsteps of other leaders? Like, I'm going to go on a philosophical rant now, but it's those deep, emotional, philosophical questions that I find the most difficult to answer. And that's why I feel like they're the most profound, because you can't answer it on a podcast. It's literally a constant evolution. Who I am today is a completely different human than I was 5 years ago, and who I'll be in 10 years is a completely another human. So I clearly have thought about this question a little bit,
Yeah,
but
and I think I posted it in one of my social media site that we are at different stages of life. We are a different person. Our goal changes, our passion changes, and we are a new person. So we need to reinvent ourselves also. I think I'm reinventing myself each decade, or even sometime quicker than that. And my last question to you would be like, what you know now from all your life experiences and things like that, and you're still growing and learning. What if you got a time machine and went back to where Ben was 14 or 13 years old? What would be one or two advice you would give that little Ben, that teenage Ben?
I I love this question. I've ruminated on it a lot. I think I would elect not to utilize that time machine,
Oh.
because I'm very nervous that I would be moving the hand of God,
Mm,
and who I became today might not be the person that I got to become. And I feel very grateful and fortunate with
right.
all my scars. I'm very grateful for where I am. And
Mm,
I'm nervous that if I were to go back and talk to prior Ben, one of two things will happen. He'd either ignore me and forget the conversation ever happened, or I'd somehow change fate and create some dystopian scenario where I don't get to be who I am now. So
mm.
sorry, but I'm going to dodge that question.
Right. That was beautifully said.
Well done. And Ben,
Ben, actually, John, I just want to say one last
sure.
thing. It's amazing because as I've aged and, as a coach, and my turning point was in my late 20s when I was coaching at a small school where the league had this coach that dominated. They won like champion after, and I was a young coach. I was kind of naive, but I was trying to figure out, right? And I remember all the other coaches were totally jealous of this man. And I befriended the guy because I'm like, whatever he's doing is working. And I think that's something I really got that flavor from you, is that, I mean, I've got a couple of maybe original ideas, but almost all of them is just learning from other people and then trying to implement them in my life. So I think you've done that very well, my friend. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all we can do.
We all agree. And Ben, finally, I think we all know you. Everyone on LinkedIn, we know you as the guy who connects people. We know you as the podcaster. We know you as the founder and owner of Balbert Marketing. But maybe step away from that for just a moment, because you talked about taking a day for self-care or taking some time away. I'm not going to ask you the deep philosophical question of who you are, but what is the Ben that we don't see on LinkedIn? Who is that Ben? What are you doing to get away from it all and just enjoy yourself and take a day for self-care?
Yeah, it would be so boring if someone I see these like influencers and thought leaders with a camera crew following them around. I'm like, does anybody really want to watch me read for an hour straight? I've got this massage membership. It's a massage chair, so I get unlimited massages and I put on a headset and I do breathing exercises. Is that really that interesting?
That's
Truly,
relaxing.
we touched on it. I'm still music Ben.
Hmm.
I'm business Ben. People see business Ben. I kind of recreated myself, but you'll still see me at a music festival over the weekend. The Rochester Lilac Festival is great. I went to New Orleans this year for New Orleans Jazz Festival.
Ah,
You
nice.
literally can't even throw a football without seeing live music. Like it's
Wow.
everywhere. Um, I'm very rational, and there's an element of creativity in music that my brain can't rationalize.
Hmm.
So when I can get into my body and do something creative, that really lights me up in a way that's sometimes hard to explain.
Hmm.
Well, great answer. And finally, Ben, you have a lot going on. You got real business connections. You got Balbert Marketing. I know you're guesting on a lot of podcasts. You speak at some events, do some presentations about starting your own podcast. What is the best way that we can connect with you and our audience can start to learn more from you and check out your podcast and your business?
Yeah, first and foremost, none of this would have been possible without you guys. It's not beyond me that you've put in hours and hundreds of hours by now into making this podcast success. So the first thing I would ask is that people ensure they're subscribed to this show,
And
that they've left a rating on this show. You don't need to leave a dissertation. You could just click 5 stars if you'd like. And Real Business Connections it's realbusinessconnections.com. It's the name of the podcast. Real Business Connections can be found where you found this. So just go to the search bar or go to the Google and type in the words Real Business Connections. But the barrier to entry is you need to support Limitless Leadership Lounge first, because they're the ones who made it possible. But just type in the words Real Business Connections and you'll find me.
thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
And I